Alright, welcome to this page of the notes. What we're going to start here is our second objective or learning target, where now we're going to begin to solve equations that have absolute values in them. And what I want to do is just remind you of what we looked at on the front page. I told you anytime you solve an absolute value, you would need to solve two equations. Let me highlight this right here in the notes. When solving AVE, absolute value equations, you will need to solve two equations, one which represents the positive option and one which represents the negative option. And let me remind you what we said. What we said is that I did the example with positive 5 and negative 5. I said that the absolute value of a positive 5 is 5, and the absolute value of a negative 5 is 5. And the problem that this gives us is when we solve an equation. If I ask you to solve the absolute value of x is equal to 5. Well, how do you know, right? How do you know which one I want? A positive 5, if I plug it in here, would get me a 5. And a negative 5, if I plug it in here, would also get me a 5. So how do you know which one I want? And I said, you don't. You don't know which one of those I'm looking for. So you need to find them both. That requires you to solve two equations. You will solve a positive and you will solve a negative equation, in which case you will plug in both the positive and the negative. So I will do an x is equal to 5. That's the positive one. If I plug in a positive 5, in here the absolute value of a positive 5 is 5. But I also have to solve the negative one. Minus x is equal to 5, right? Well, what I've got to do here, I can't leave that minus sign there. I got to move the minus sign to the other side. Well, the way you get rid of a negative is just multiply everybody by a negative. Negative times a negative is a positive x. Negative times a positive 5 is a negative 5. And here I now have my second solution. If I plug a negative 5 into the absolute value, I also get a positive 5. You have just found me both solutions. You don't know which one I want, so you need to give me both of them. You have to solve both the positive and the negative options for these equations to find both of those answers. That's exactly what we're going to do. Now, what I've done here on this page, just to help you guys out, I've given you a couple of examples where I've worked through the solution for you. If you want, go ahead and take a look at those, but we're not going to learn anything by me walking you through an example that's already solved. We're only going to learn something if we do it together. That's what's on the next page of the notes. So if you head over to the next page of the notes, we'll try a couple of problems together. I'll see you there.